Hi there. Welcome to episode 271 of Fresh Air at 5. It is summertime. I'm enjoying summer, and because of that, I haven't been walking every day, but I've been working on other projects. We're renovating our main bathroom in our home, and I also help my wife and daughter put in 4 garden plots on the side of our house. We're going to have 1 for flowers and 3 for vegetables. So that's coming up, and we just planted it. So it'll be coming up soon, and we're looking forward to that. In this episode, we hear from Gabe Carrillo as he gives us his 26-27 beginning of the year keynote. We think about thinking aloud and sharing how we plan and process micro decisions through our day with our students so they can be better equipped. Looking at the SATcast new host, as well as growth mindset with Mike Brilla. All right, without further ado, here's episode 271 of Fresh Air at 5.
This is Robin Wilson, host of The Education Connection, a proud member of the Education Podcast Network. Each show on the network is independently owned, and the views expressed may not represent those of other podcasts. For the best education podcasts, visit edupodcastnetwork.com.
Welcome to Fresh Air at 5, the podcast. I'm your host, Brian Carpenter, coming to you every week from Abbotsford, which is about 45 minutes east of Vancouver, British Columbia, on the west coast of Canada. Fresh Air at 5 is my regular attempt to get some fresh air by walking about my neighborhood, which is located on the traditional and unceded territory of the Stolo people, the Simath First Nation and Mathwe First Nation. I consume podcast content while I walk, then reflect on this content in an unedited video, which I post on my X, formerly known as Twitter, channel every day. This podcast is the collection of the audio taken from those daily selfie videos over the course of a week, Monday to Friday. So let's jump into my listening and learning this past week. Hey, PLN, it's Tuesday, August 4, 2026. Today's a pretty special day. Today is the day that my daughter's choir, the Pacific Voices Choir, is sending 70 singers to Sweden to the World Choir Games. So my daughter is in that group of singers, and there's 20 staff and chaperones going along, other families tagging along, and all those things happening today as they get on the plane in Vancouver. So that's very exciting, and it was an even more exciting weekend because WestJet was on strike, and that's the carrier that they are flying on. So that was pretty stressful as a leadership team to figure out how we're going to get everybody to Sweden in time for opening ceremonies for the World Choir Games. So she's gone for 10 days, and it's going to be great to see and hear all the things that are happening as they tour in Copenhagen and Heisenberg, Sweden for the World Choir Games. All right, that's the beginning of it. And I had a great weekend, BC Day weekend here. So did lots of things around the house. Went and saw the Odyssey. Fantastic. So this morning I listened to episode 302 of the EdTech Bites podcast as Gabe Carrillo brings us his 26-27 beginning of the school year keynote. And he talks in his keynote about dropping perfectionism, making sure that we are being functional as opposed to flawless, because that is not possible to be flawless. He also talks about the to-do list and how it is mighty and can have many things on it. And we need to accept the fact that we're never going to get it all done, because it's important to know that there's always going to be something there. And that gets around back to the first point about perfectionism and dropping that. All right, the third thing he talks about is about EdTech technology and using EdTech wisely in your classroom and not doing all the technology, but doing 2 or 3 things well and using one or two tools very well. That's my world right now. I'm using Adobe Express. Been an Adobe Express guy for a long time. Love it. And there's still developments and growing in that space and stepping into Canva as well. So that's where we're at. And Gabe, congratulations on your new role at Panorama Education. And I look forward to hearing adventures as you step into the private sector and out of K-12 education directly and out of the classroom. So good for you. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. I might listen to some more podcasts as I'm driving my daughter. Well, as after I drive my daughter to the airport and on my way home. So we'll see how it goes. Happy Tuesday. Okay, bye. Hey PLN, it's Friday, August 7, 2026. Good morning to you. Trust this finds you well. As I stepped out the door this morning, my daughter, Gracie, she called me from Sweden. She's over in Heisenberg, Sweden, and they're at the World Choir Games with her Pacific Voices Choir, and they just had their first competition today. So that was quite fantastic to hear. I was pretty excited to talk to her, and super great that they are doing well. This morning as I'm walking, I listened to episode 353 of Angela Watson's Truth for Teachers. She brings us an episode entitled Think Aloud, teaching the students the priority and planning in their days. And that's not exactly the title. I botched that. I'm sorry, Angela. And but anyhow, the gist of it is that as we as teachers go through our days of planning and teaching, that we navigate the time crunches and the schedule and the amount of content that we have to cover by looking at our class and assessing how they're doing and what they're able to do coming up and all kinds of stuff like that that we don't actually talk about. All they see is going from one activity to the next without us sharing why we've made those decisions, and that they don't know that there was about, I don't know, probably 5 or 6 things that were considered, maybe 10 or 12 that were considered as we make a plan to do one thing over the next. I think it's important that we share with our students this and model this in front of them, talk about the process that we're going through, because we are human and so are they, and they need to learn this stuff. Angela talks about this being a missing skill that is not taught for planning, and as students get into high school and we give them a project that they don't know how to do it because maybe they haven't been taught how to do it over the years. So that's something to think about. I'm talking about breaking down projects and having students, talk with you about planning. And that planning stage of a project is an important stage because they can, may not have the executive function to be able to slow it down, break it down into parts, and work through and have a plan to be successful at the end. I've seen some of my best students not be able to do this, and I'm like, what's going on? This could probably be why. So listen for yourself to episode 353 of Truth for Teachers with Angela Watson. All right, I got another one to go, and I'm going up a hill here. We'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye. One more thing for August 7, 2026. Embrace growth. That is season 3, episode 19 of The Inspired Athlete with Mike Brilla. And Mike, I appreciate your thoughts as you talked about setbacks and failure and growth and athletics and what it takes to decide that we can be calm in the midst of failure and we can still compete at a high level, and that we should be winning, but maybe we won't be winning because not everybody can be winning. I really appreciate the way you approach this. I appreciate the fact that you talked about the setback on last Sunday as you and your family went and saw the Odyssey after your son's baseball team was not as successful as they should have been. And the line in there about Odysseus that Calypso says, not from the poem like you said, Homer's poem, but from the screenplay that we watched, that, it's something about, controlling everything, but sometimes we just need to rest in what is happening right now. And so that line, I just botched it. It's by Calypso in the movie The Odyssey. So listen to Mike's episode here, episode 19, as he talks about this, because this is really important stuff. It's important for adults, like for me, as I'm going through things and we work through stuff, but sometimes we don't succeed. And how do we do that? I'm impressed by watching athletes manage their emotions in stressful situations. And that is a skill of being a human being that can lead to being a successful human being. As we manage our emotions, we can keep our heads focused so we can continue to get the task that we need to get to be able to do what we're supposed to be doing. All right, that's all I've got for right now. That was my friend's son that just drove by, so that's why I turned around. All right, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a fabulous day. I will. One more to listen to before I get home. Okay, bye. Last thing for August 7th, 2026. I just listened to a bonus episode of the SATcast with Chris Nesi as he brings on a new co-host, Dr. Dan Kreiness. Jeff Joe Juba, as the name was, is unable to host with Chris. So Chris reached out and Dr. Dan stepped up and is going to be the new co-host on the SATcast. So it's great to hear your voice again, Dr. Dan, and glad to have you partnering with Chris on this project as you move forward. So I'm passing this along to my podcast peeps here as I am walking, and this will go into episode 271 of Fresh Air at 5 later today for everybody else to hear. So as you guys bring the SATcast, which is a nostalgic approach to community, and kind of like the Twitter chat used to be, you guys are doing it through an audio form and posing questions and all kinds of stuff like that. So I'm looking forward to future episodes that you guys bring. Thanks so much. And Dr. Dan, it was great to see you when I launched episode 1 of Fresh Air 5 way back in the day, and that podcast summit that Chris Nesi was a part of with Tim Cavey and all the others in that Zoom room in January 2021. All right. Thanks all. We'll talk to you guys. Have a fabulous day. I will. It's Friday. Okay. Bye.
I appreciate you giving me a listen as I've created this podcast experience for you. It's like a unique Blinkist or Coles Notes version of the content I take in, like a highlight reel, so that you can hopefully find some other interesting podcasts you may not have considered before. I've recorded the specific episode podcast titles and episode numbers in the show notes, which are only a click or swipe away for your learning convenience. I've also started to put together a Spotify playlist of each of the episodes so that you can also take a listen to those specifically, and the link to that playlist is in the show notes. Please subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. And if you enjoy this podcast and its format, share it with someone else. You can also follow me on X, formerly known as Twitter, at Brian Carr, BRYONCAR, or at Fresh Air at 5. Tweet about your experience or give it a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. Fresh Air at 5 can be found on the Educational Podcast Network. Podcasts for educators, podcasts by educators. I hope you have a fantastic day. Get some fresh air before the day is out and take care of yourself because you are worth it.